You got 20 poxwalkers. You're like, do I want these back? Oh, I think I do.
Pretty sure I want them back.
Pretty sure, yeah.
To forge the narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul, your host for the Lost Souls podcast. I'm joined tonight by Tanya Gates.
Hi everybody.
And Adam Camilleri.
Hello everybody.
Welcome to the show. If you're new here, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment, say what's up. I'm going to try to get better about encouraging that stuff. But anyway, thanks for listening no matter what.
Yeah, you really don't put any pressure on people, do you? You're just like, do it. It'd be nice. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's okay.
You know what? There's those gold standards for content creators, and whatever. I don't do any of them, so I can't judge you.
I want people to listen. I want to see the 5-star. Well, honestly, when you do that, it's like a completely zero cost, very little effort way to support the show, and it also helps other people find us. It does whatever it does with the algos and that kind of stuff. So I need to get better about saying it. But even look, if you can't be bothered, I still appreciate you listening. Yeah, that's the soft sell.
Just know we don't appreciate you as much as we could if you did.
So today on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about what we believe to be the state 9th edition play, match play, maybe competitive play. Later on the show, we're going to bring the hobby segment back. I've come to really appreciate this way I'm painting yellow helmets. And it's one of those things where it kind of looks like you're probably on the wrong track until it instantly looks like you've done it and nailed it. So I think but it's very easy. And so we'll talk about that later on.
I'm always interested with yellow. Everyone's yellow schemes. I mean, yellow's still got a bad rap, which I don't think it deserves anymore with how good the paints that we have now. But yeah, it's a good one to talk about.
It's still rough, and there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I mean, I think ultimately you just have to find some way that you are comfortable with and that you can replicate, depending on how much you want to make it a part of your army. But yeah, we'll save that for the hobby segment later on in the show after the break. So yeah, state of 9th edition. I wish I had a little trumpet to play taps on the fact that Blood Angels, I think they've got a lot of competition out there right now.
They're not paying penance for their 8th edition sins, because realistically, their 8th edition sins was their HQ choices, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just what they do has been, I think it's replicated in many other armies for way cheaper now. Does that make sense?
It is. Well, so my style of just throwing sanguinary guard at things, and this is what I mean, and I'm kind of tongue in cheek a little bit, but the style of just throwing big overhand rights, into the field is not going to win you a bunch of games anymore, because even though we haven't got a ton of games in, as a populace because of the state of the world, hopefully that's changing, but it has matured even over this past year or so. And then with the releases of certain of army books, and including the Drukhari.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, those big haymakers aren't getting you points anymore. You don't earn any points by throwing haymakers like you used to. It used to be, I'm going to go lay this absolute smackdown, and it's going to get me 10 points. And now, the only real applicable damage you could be doing is killing that unit to stop them from getting points.
Yeah. So
all you're doing is taking away their scoring, not actually gaining points yourself, in a lot of ways.
Well, there is some value of replacing the unit. You go over and take someone off an objective, and then you sit there with something strong, but it's still you're not really ratcheting up the score a ton as much as you were. So with the whole kill one, kill more type of mentality we were in the past.
Yeah, agreed. How are your armies holding up, Tanya? How are you feeling about your factions?
I mean, I'm getting a lot of games in with Guard. And Guard does feel a little bit like playing on hard mode right now, just because they're not tough at all. What's an invulnerable save? You know what I mean? So for me, it's become a game extremely dependent on positioning and throwing things out sort of in waves, if that makes sense. So, and I've always played a very defensive style. So it's been a little bit hard for me to adapt, because the game, upon first glance, the game looks like it favors people who can aggressively move out across the board and steal objectives. rather quickly. So I've sort of been learning a new way to play guard in order to like mitigate their squishiness. But it does feel a little bit like hard mode, but I feel like I'm starting to figure it out.
What are you taking though? I mean, like you said, to mitigate the squishiness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are you leaning towards more like mechanized type stuff, or like what's working for you?
Well, obviously there's so I have only just, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to sort of approach orcs for my more competitive games, or if I wanted to stick with guard. And I've only recently just decided like I'm going to stick with guard. But my list, right? I mean, they're my boys, my first love. So my list is heavily mechanized. I'm not sure it's because it's what's good in the meta. I think it's just because that's how I like to play it. And I'm just trying to find a way to make it work. But, I've got like the 2 full payload manticores and a tank commander, which I'm probably going to build another one. Just because I don't have a Demolisher tank commander, and I want one.
I was just about to say Punisher, because that like stacks up really well against Drukhari out there, and I think we're going to see a lot of that.
I do have one of those. So the good thing about the number of shots on that one, though, is I don't necessarily feel like I need it to be a tank commander to do damage,
Oh, that's a good point.
So I usually just take it as a regular Lehman Russ and save some points. And then my list is just like a little of this and a little of that. It's like I'm actually adding in some custodes just to try. So I'm doing some TTS stuff with custodes, just a small patrol, just to add a little bit of toughness that guard doesn't have.
What regiment are you running?
I'm doing the standard. So gunnery experts and the spotter details.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of destroying with non-tank commander Lehman Russes, especially a Punisher. The extra range and the +1 to hit strat just means it just functions as a tank commander all of a sudden. It's really, really quite slick. And it gives people a reason to crack out the Destroyants, which no one should be unhappy about.
They're good. Those models, like I know they're kind of hard to come by now, but they are like, you got to be an enthusiast for painting them for one. But when you do, like, they shine.
Absolutely, man. They are gorgeous, and they actually hold up so well for what they are. Especially, I'm always interested with the different things, different little micro choices people make. How many? So I think we wanted to talk about this topic because I think we've all coalesced to having around about somewhere between 20 and 40 games of 9th edition. And it has been a really slow start, isn't it? Like, we're over a year in and I've only played like 30 games. Usually, like at this time, 8th edition, I was in like the multiple hundreds of games in a year in. I would have played about like somewhere between like 8 and 10 tournaments, and then I'd be playing like 3 or 4 games a week. And now I'm just like, just maybe got 30 games.
Let me confess something though. I mean, as a self-confessed like filthy meta chaser from time to time, I've really enjoyed just exploring the factions I enjoy the best. But I've noticed also a slowdown in some of my hobby. Like, I'm an event-driven painter. Like, there will be things that I paint for fun, but mostly it's about like getting my army list that I think is going to crush folks ready for the next event. But this is going to give me a lot of opportunity to. Now, look, I don't want to say that I've used this lockdown time to paint all the miniatures. My backlog is empty. No, that is not true. I don't want to represent that in the slightest. But I have painted a lot more stuff that wasn't like directly competitive, and I've also painted like some stuff for friends and stuff. There's been some upsides to this, even though we don't see it, or we may not all appreciate it at the surface right now.
I'm noticing a big difference in people's rules knowledge. People are way better with rulebook knowledge. Like, I played a game yesterday. I'm like, this guy knows the rulebook better than I do, but I know all the codexes better than he does. I'm just like, it's interesting to see that come to fruition. Of course, that's because I review content and stuff on a different show, and so I'm always up to date with like the new factions and codexes that come out. And this guy was just schooling me on like because when you strategic outflank, you can walk into combat from your board edge. And we were playing Vanguard, and I was like, "You're not in your deployment zone. You can't do that." He's like, "Yeah, you can." And he points to. I'm like, "My God, I am screwed." Yeah.
Alert!
I had no idea you could do that, but I knew stuff about sisters playing sisters about his army that he didn't know, and I thought that was really cute.
Yeah. I like that, what we're seeing, this type of stuff. But also, I learn the rules better. What do they say? The burn hand learns best. Like, you'll never forget that rule. So you're playing in a competitive game, or I guess a game in general, you learn more. Like, and especially also, when I see, now, the world's a lot more connected, and people talk like on forums or not forums. God, how old am I?
Forums. But I go back to Bolter and Chainsaw. Oh,
In groups and stuff.
Ring,
you know?
ring. Duck is calling. No.
But your your group of players, your local players, you can convince yourself something works a certain way, and as far as like that table, it does. But when you go and you play with other groups, you really build your knowledge, I think, a lot faster.
I agree with that absolutely. Well, it depends. A lot of people learn in different ways, and I think it's a really important thing, not just in hobby life, but in general life, just to know how you learn best. I learn best by doing and by feeling my way through things. So I'll read like the core rule book like once or twice, and then I'll refer back to it whenever I need a clarification. But then I have friends who like they pore over that thing and they'll memorize it back to front, inside out. And that's just how people learn differently. I think it's important.
Well,
for me, I can't read rules. I don't know what it is, but like the rules just look like a completely different language for me. So I actually have to like sit down with a notepad and like read it sentence by sentence and then almost like transcribe it into like English so that I can understand what it's saying. And I don't know why my brain works like that. I just have this like blockage. So it's really hard for me to actually book learn the rules. Like I can do it, but it literally requires study. So not being able to get games in means that I have to put in like exponentially more effort to learning the rules than I would if I would just like get reps in.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. At least you recognize that. Like you recognize the like what you need
really
to do it and then go through the effort of doing it. That's pretty cool. What were you gonna say?
I'm that person that like walks in with like a stack of cue cards that are all color coded because I can't just like rely on the book during the game because like I can't read it. It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. And people are always like, you're so organized. I'm like, no, I just can't learn.
No, I mean, I can't learn. I do that as well. Especially when I'm picking up a new army or taking it to an event for the first time. I remember the first time I played Deathwatch in 8th edition, I had like 4 back-to-front pages of all the strats and combos and all those things. And so it was like, oh, wow, it's cool you're so organized. I'm incompetent. And I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm flailing in the dark here. Leave me alone.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. But I thought, I want to talk about this topic because I'm starting to get a sense of 9th edition now. And I don't know how you guys feel, but I like it. I like it quite a lot. I'm very, very happy with this edition. I feel like this might be by the end of this, when it's all said and done, this might be my favorite edition of the game, which is quite a big call.
I think more as the different objectives come out and like the chapter approved, the tournament editions or whatever continue to roll out and the game stays like fresh over time and you get this huge collection of potential secondaries. So each game might actually be a little bit more dynamic, but still within the context of. So that was. Now, I know we're going to talk about this because we did a little bit of it in the pre-show, but I never really appreciated Maelstrom.
Yeah.
The flow. Yeah.
It was such a polarizing format. Like,
well, I know a lot of people did. Like, it just wasn't my thing. I like to know. I like to when I'm going into this simulated battle, and I know it's a game, like it's not a real battle, but going into this, I like to feel like there was some type of structure, some type of like frame with which when the engagement could occur. And I felt like I just did better when I had that slight bit of structure around it. And Maelstrom felt like it was almost like you're being led around with a carrot, like just
a drunken commander. Right?
I want to be the drunken commander. I don't want my Banginius to be the drunken commander.
I like Maelstrom because I feel like it forced me to think outside of the box, right? It forced me to be, because in general, I don't tend to be a very flexible kind of person, like able to think on the fly, but Maelstrom was really like training me to do that, if that makes sense. I think sometimes I get very like stuck in my ways, like this is how my army plays, this is the plan with my army, and then I can't, like, if something comes that's like sort of that I haven't seen before, I sometimes struggle with being flexible enough in order to deal with it. Whereas playing Maelstrom from time to time, it teaches you that your army well, in most cases, your army is capable of being played a number of different ways if you look at the tools a little bit different. So that's why I like Maelstrom.
So Maelstrom went through a lot of different iterations. Essentially, it was launched in 6th edition. We had you remember that we had the pack of the little cards. There weren't any specific, faction specific cards. There was nothing like that as of yet. And there were just these little cards, and they were pretty good. Like it was pretty basic what you had to do, but it was fun, and it was pretty good. And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that in the fact that you got more cards, but then by the end of it, you could make your own deck. You got to take cards out at the start of the game or the start of the event or whatnot. And yeah, that felt really good to me. I went to, people know I've been to a couple of ETCs and represented Australia and stuff. And ETC was a conglomeration of Maelstrom. Sorry, their mission structure was conglomeration of Maelstrom, Eternal War with the addition of First Strike, Warlord, Linebreaker. It was a mess of a thing. It was very hard to get your head around. For a lot of people, they considered that the top level of the game, and they thought it should have the most complex and convoluted missions possible. They succeeded, wholeheartedly. But it wasn't always a good thing. It was just like some missions was just a mess. But when you got to boil down your Maelstrom deck, I thought that was when it reached its zenith of being viable. And I'd hope that comes back in at least like one kind of the formats, because I like that quite a bit. And also they banned a lot of the erroneous cards. I don't know. Tanya, you said you loved Maelstrom. I had a game which was it ended up being quite a prestigious game at a Masters event, where I lost because my opponent deployed his Warlord on the primary objective mission, and he drew the primary objective, and then he drew the one that gave him 6 points if his Warlord was standing on a specific objective. I lost by like a sub 6 points, and I'm like, yeah, stuff that can go straight. It was like the second card he drew. I was like, yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, I will caveat that by saying like there are just like no Maelstrom events. Where I live, in 8th, there was no Maelstrom events, so it was all just like games at the game store or whatever. I don't know how I would handle it in a tournament format, but yeah, we always sort of had like the house rule that if there was ever like a weird card or some sort of like weird interaction, that we would just throw it away and like redraw another one.
I do believe that's the only way to make it or to have made it competitive, was to allow that bit of deck crafting, deck building or whatever. But then it was like hard to pull it. I don't want to take a stroll down memory lane, with that too much. But where I was going with that kind of comparison is, once we get enough of these secondaries, you can really craft your own mission within the frame and structure of the way the game is kind of set up to be played. And I like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, the shackles will come off, and like the variety of games you'll see will explode exponentially. Like I would love to see. I mean, I know that this is probably never going to happen, but I'd love to see what G-Dub's release schedule was supposed to be for this edition.
Yeah.
Well, look,
I would, it would be really, and never going to happen. But because I'd love to see how far they had to diverge and what their actual plan was. Because I feel like if they hit the ground perfectly, like they hit this plumb on the release and the schedule of when things dropped, this would already be heralded as one of the best editions, if not possibly the best edition of the game. It's
remember when we saw the Space Marine Codex, and we're like, oh my goodness, are these missions objectives going to be allowed? Are we going to tolerate that? And the answer is wholeheartedly yes. Bring them on.
Yeah, I mean, I do think they need to limit that you can only have one non-basic book thing. I shouldn't be able to take, as a Dark Angels player, I shouldn't be able to take Oath of Moment and Stubborn Defiance. I think you should only have one, like one or the other. You can't have it all.
Play better, Adam.
But this is me. This is me saying my army should be worse. So
Well, the hypothetical you challenging the other hypothetical you, and I'm giving you both advice. Just
Get good.
Yeah, let it bloom. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's. I think that having more options, giving a little bit of control to the players, because I've gone all about, like, I'm on record, doing this for as long as we have. I'm saying that I don't like player-placed objectives.
Yep.
I thought it gave too much power to savvy players and stuff. But honestly, when we know that we can choose our own secondaries, like, you can have that advanced knowledge coming into the game. Like, you're not being surprised. You can take as long, like you're talking, you can spend as much time as you want thinking about it. You can craft your army how to get what you need out of this game, like to give you your best advantage going into the game. So technically, since both players can do that, that's another way you're both coming into the game on equal footing.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very fair. I do. So the reason that one bothers me, the fact that I can double down on the Space Marine ones, is because it's not something that I expect other armies to be able to do.
Oh, fair. You think like, the rest of the armies are going to have,
because we've already seen it. We've got Cult of Strife supplements from Book of Rust. We've got Raven ones. They didn't come with secondaries, but the Space Marine supplements do come with secondaries. And so I feel like that could be an unequal equation further down the line when all the books are out, but only Space Marines have the ability to take 2 specific stratagems. Sorry, secondaries.
I mean, look, I think that may be, it may be a valid critique once we see everything that comes out, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of neither here nor there yet. We have to see many more of the books to come out because it could just be that like this, all of a sudden the Space Marine secondaries look pretty crap compared to some of the ones that are coming out, and then it's no longer an argument. It's like, yeah, let them have their 2 pathetic secondaries. Right?
Well, no, I legitimately think that we should let them all in all the time, and this is just going to continue to kind of expand the fun that people can get out of the game, and then one step closer to leveling the playing field competitively if you choose to play that way. And so I just don't think we should limit it.
Next topic I kind of want to
hang on. One more on this is that I don't want to make it sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I still all want to put the power on the event organizers to culture craft however they want, and if they feel like the carte blanche of every single secondary is too much, then you're fun. You do what you want. So.
Yeah, that's always the case. I wanted to. So one of the biggest selling points about 9th edition was that terrain was going to matter again. Because realistically, terrain hadn't mattered since you could, cast a spell and move it in 7th edition. It was ever since then. It was like, death with terrain ruins the game. No, but that's not the reason.
I
why.
love that.
I was just being fun.
Let's say that, and back in the early edition of anti-plant missiles.
What?
I won't sidetrack, but you could equip your missile launcher figures or like Dark Reapers with anti-plant. So somebody's hiding in a forest, you just shoot the forest out from under them.
Oh, it's a napalm bomb.
Yeah, of course. I remember that. I never heard it called that before.
That's the name of
it. I could really use one of those. Honestly, like, can I have a hunter killer missile that just like is napalm, please?
It was legitimately called. I guess I could be misremembering, but anti-plant.
There you go. Yeah. So the question was, how well do you think GW has gone making terrain relevant?
So if you can remember, use the keywords. I dig it.
Yeah, I'm still struggling to memorize all the keywords, different things. I perpetually forget to use defensible. Like, I've never used it once. Continue to forget. And then in hindsight, I'm like, oh man, that was defensible. It wouldn't have, a lot of the time it wouldn't have mattered, but in my head, it's going to matter one day, and I'm going to forget, and I'm going to beat myself up about it.
No, I think you should get index cards, and that's what I've been trying to make myself do is write the traits on the index cards and just have it there. So in my real test games, that's to try to play with it.
Is anybody making like little tokens that have like the keywords on them? You can just throw down onto your terrain. I haven't seen any. If you see any, can you like throw them my way? Because that'd be a great reminder.
Yeah, the same problem.
Yeah, but like in terms of the terrain, like forests really hurt armies that have 4+ ballistic skill. Yeah. And Tau. Poor Tau.
Yeah, 100%, totally agree. And you don't necessarily have the maneuverability to get around the sides of them.
No.
So if they're between you and your opponent, it's like, well, sucks to be me.
Yeah. So for me, like that, like I played in a small TTS, just 1,000-point tournament, and I was playing against Dark Angels, and there was 2 giant forests on this map, and I was just like, this feels really bad, man. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that there's a lot of armies that really even care about forests, but for Tau and Guard, it's crippling almost.
Well, I see. Is that a good thing? Is it a good thing that that's so crippling? It's such a factor. I mean, I do think that should be taken into account when a TO decides how many forests they want on a table. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's no.
But when are you going to see Tau and Ash Militarum at a tournament?
Are you saying that things? Are you suggesting things like forests are keeping people from taking these armies?
The forester OP.
No, I don't think it's forests. I think that it's just because they're playing on hard mode, right? That's all. But
I was willing to hear your argument though, if you had a good case. Forest are keeping the man down, right? Death to the tree.
No, I mean, like, and people who play guard are going to play like regardless. But yeah, I don't know. Forests feel really bad.
That's pretty
Forest. Yeah, exactly. And for the different reasons, forests feel great for a lot of the armies I play. When I'm posturing up, trying to use stubborn defiance to get 15 points. If I can place that unit on the other side of a forest, -2 to charge, -1 to hit, all that good stuff. It feels pretty good to be able to leverage it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do like the way the terrain works. I mean, we talked a lot about it on the show in the past, and I haven't changed my mind. I think that they've done a much better job of giving you the ability to make the whatever piece of like the physical representation of the thing that you have on the table relevant to the game. And then you kind of have to, it's one of those things that it kind of scales the fun, and you can have this discussion and dialogue with your opponent. Now, at an organized event, it's different. I think that it should be, again, culture crafting on the TO side. But when you're at home, you could be like, I don't want to play in the jungle, but I'm playing catacombs, man. Like, well, now we need a couple of roost over here for me to stand on and stuff, that kind of thing. You can have that kind of discussion.
I really love how you're mentioning culture crafting. I don't think that's a term that gets used enough. We should do an episode on that. Just shelve that one. Let's circle back to that.
I will not say it again this episode.
Nah, do it. It's actually an amazing
this episode. Well.
Yeah, well, it's an incredible thing. People just don't seem to draw much attention to. But back to 9th edition. What's another phase that we think changed significantly in this edition? That's
charge phase. It's it's tough to be a bug, or what? I mean, I don't. Well, technically yes with Tyranids, but but it's the charge phase is radically changed to where I think that most people never like to charge from anything other than 2 or 3 inches away, so you always line it up to where you take the dice out of it where you can, but still, like with charging, not being able to jump over things when you're moving the model in the charge phase, not being able to willy-nilly declare
everything in range,
everything in range, because there was no reason not to do so in the previous edition, and then it took some of the risk out of it. Now, charging, like the assault phase is something they struggle, like the rules struggle to support that and keep it fun. I think we're in a good place with it right now.
Yeah, I feel like in 8th edition, all the feel bad elements happened in close combat. You reckon that'd be a close to fair statement? Not all of them, but a lot of the feel bad elements happened in close combat, and for a lot of people, that was not being able to fall back.
That's been so with close combat over the years. It's one of those things to where if you put somebody in a submission move, or what's what do they call it, like MMA, where you put somebody where the more they struggle, the closer they are to passing out.
I don't know what it's called, but yeah, I get you.
But it's one of those. Seems like it's been like one of those type situations in the past, and now I feel like you've got that aggressiveness, and it's still viable, but it's not on that feel bad level.
So I remember in the start of 8th edition, we had to go through a lot of iterations of the game before it got to some semi-balance of enjoyability. Well, I'm saying that pretty loosely because there was a lot of ways to enjoy it.
Word pretty loosely. I don't even.
Yeah, so remember at the start of the edition, like at a competitive level, the game was like, okay, how many Storm Ravens did you take and did you go first? And one player didn't get.
Oh, that was different. Yeah.
Really, I'm talking really early on. Yeah, really early on. We had to go through. There had to be a bunch of changes just to make the game kind of balanced enough to get a full game in. Like that was where we started off with 8th edition. Like, it was actually at a place where one player didn't get to enjoy the game if they went second, etc. And so then we had things like now we've had things like strategic reserves added into that. At the time, we had what's the one where everyone started in cover?
Prepare
2
positions.
CP.
Yeah.
Prepared positions was added. And this is an edition that hasn't needed any of those things. They've really ironed out all the issues that would naturally have stopped people from getting excited, getting passionate about the game. I feel like there is a lot of that out there right now. And I'm happy to be a card carry and flag waving saving 9th edition is really, really good. And everyone should be able to enjoy it. And I think everyone can for the first time in a long time.
I love it when the edition changes. It's like Warhammer's like, well, we mean it's always been this way. We've always.
Paul, you were saying that you have to maybe rethink how you work with your Blood Angels, right? Like you're just saying that they're not just like a giant fist that comes in Do you find that you've had to sort of relearn how to play Blood Angels, or like how are you approaching that?
So it's unit choices, so where you need to be able to. There's a mix of like, do I go with super durable and I use this unit that it's a lot of points. Like I believe in sinking points and I said this into Sanguinary Guard because you really could never go wrong with them. But what they're good at doing is not necessarily making a lot of points off of other armies right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's got to be mixed up to where you have to be, you got to sacrifice some of this other stuff, like the fast moving and the Sanguinary Guard, what they do in favor of trying to score points. And so you got to, like, it's a bit of of alignment of what you want to do. And if your goal is to win more games, then you've got to take things that have this more dynamic component to them that don't have to get to wring the effectiveness out of them. It isn't just simply throwing them at the opponent.
Yeah, like I felt like in 8th edition, a lot of armies or a lot of players would spam really good units and like would take as many of them as possible. And I'm not really too sure if that style of list building is like really favored in 9th edition, just because I feel like you need to be a little bit more versatile in some ways in your list.
But it's a different. I get exactly what I think I get exactly what you're saying. It's a different kind of versatility though than what we kind of used to. In 8th edition, you wanted to make that you want to get the best unit that can do multiple things, and for a lot of people that was like the Catachan Guardsman who could have like 4 attacks at strength 4, and be a 5 or 6 point model. Whereas now I think it's the age of the single appliance unit, the single use unit. Like you can take things like the Crypto Thralls and the Servitors and the stuff because they're going to get you points and they're going to get you mileage. You can take, I played against a guy last night who had 6 units of Battle Sisters. They did nothing but sit on objectives the entire game. They barely shot. They maybe shot me like a couple of times with bolters and did nothing because they were just opportunistic. They never charged me. They advanced around and just got primary points. And that was just fine. 8th edition, that didn't happen so much. Everything needed to be able to do a lot at all the time to justify its place in the army. Like Dark Reapers weren't good because they shot and killed everything. They were good because they shot and then fire and faded and you couldn't kill them back. They had to be, nothing could be single purpose, single use. They had to get more than one use out of them. But now I feel like the shackles are really well and truly off for people. All the units that have been sitting gathering dust, you could probably find a reason to take them. I'm not going to say universally that for everybody because whatever.
Well, you rethink the list. Like playing against an equally skilled opponent, you got to have the tools to compete in this edition. And the tools, I think, are changing now that more games, more people are getting more reps.
That's a good way of saying it. The tools are changing. Yeah. But yeah, I really think the age of the take whatever you want as long as it's got a purpose is back. Because I really feel like that's how it was in 5th edition. You could just take kind of whatever you wanted. As long as you had a clear understanding of why it was there and like a way of making use of it, it kind of got to be good. Like it got to add value. Yeah.
Like I just sort of have noticed that particularly among like the really, really great, well, not really great, but like the newest codexes, the army lists are quite varied, and they're varied in how they play. But even like within a list, it's varied in the types of units that you see, and I really enjoy that. I think it makes, competitive play aside, I think that it makes a more interesting visual experience at the table instead of seeing 3 units exactly the same. You might see a little bit more of like a Highlander style, right? Like I got one of these, and one of these. I really enjoy that on the table.
Well, I've always been
my next army is going to be 20 Blightlord Terminators and a bunch of Poxwalkers.
You would.
Yeah, the one I always come back to this. I like to measure. This is editions for all games that I ever played. Pretty much any game I ever played, fantasy, 40k, not so much like Necro and the small gang level or squad level games, but any like decent sized force game that I play, I like to measure it about how thematic I feel like my force is. I like to have my armies to have a certain feel to them. Like this could be something you could see on a battlefield somewhere. I don't feel like that was very well encapsulated, especially 7th edition was an absolute. Whatever. Everyone knows what that was. None of us are proud of the things we had to do then. Necrons and Chaos Space Marine allies, yay! That was great for everybody. Tyranids and Eldar, fantastic. But 7th edition started out really poorly for that, but by the end of it did look respectable. Even the Space Marine armies that were like, I won't say the triple repulsor ones, but like you think about what won the LVO in the last year of 8th edition. It was a Space Marine army that had 1 Leviathan Dreadnought in it, a couple of two or three Chaplain Dreadnoughts, and then just a load of intercessors. It looked good. It looked like a force on the table. It didn't look like a hard skewed, weird, mech'd up, wonky thingy-majig. No one was happy to be across from it. It didn't break anyone's immersion. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I like especially the look. Well, let's take a break. We'll come back and talk about some of this. We'll continue this discussion and maybe some else, and then the hobby segment. Y'all hang on.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. I still got Tanya and Adam here.
Hey everybody.
Okay.
What up? So you were talking about the state of ninth, and then how things what might have been. Now we've got some campaign books. We're seeing some new army lists come out. We talked a lot about the Terminus Est assault force in the last episode. I think it's real strong. I think several things in this book are strong, but I'm actually excited about playing the Terminus Est.
Yeah. So how many Blight Lords did you say?
20 Blight Lords, and then a bunch of Poxwalkers. I mean, this
rising
tide.
Is it okay if I say I'm not excited about that? No, it actually does sound like a lot of fun.
Oh, I mean, so I like the Nurgle aesthetic, and I like the Horde management, and I like the look of it. The zombie Horde. I think it's. I'm
so
down
when you
with
say Horde management, do you mean the issues it causes your opponent, or the own challenges it causes for you? Kind of manage and wield.
Yeah, that's it. The challenges it causes for me. I mean, I've played Hordes in the past, and I tell you, I've never not finished a game because you have to be. Well, there are certain phases of the game where you have to just like be super dialed in on what you're doing. Moving and removing models is one of those times. You can't be dilly-dallying. Like I'm also like equitable time at the table. Like I'm not going to be controlling the time, nor am I going to be being lazy with. I was going to say like cute with moving my models or whatever, but that implies that's not what I mean. I mean. Or I certainly don't want to imply that other people would do that either. But you got to be really dialed in so you're not abusing that round time at the table. I like that challenge.
I do like how that's become an accepted thing. I think the necessities of 8th edition meant that we had to really take a step back and look at what is fair on the table during a game. And I think the fairest thing is for both players to have and the same amount of time to play the game. Yeah,
and look, you can go into that like with the understanding with your opponent, and then sometimes at the highest level of play, you've got to regulate it, and that's hey.
But I also think it's just a good thing to have your eye on. But I'm of the opinion that a lot of the time, or some of the time, if I'm playing an army that doesn't take a lot of time. Like, the army I'm playing at the moment, Dark Angels, does not take any time at all. I can play a 5-round game in like sub 40 minutes of my time in a lot of ways. So if I'm playing somebody like Orcs, I'm happy to be equitable and be like, I don't need much time. Feel free to have most of mine too. Like as long as we get, I would rather we both get the game done. And we get to turn 5, then there be any kind of disputes or
get the game in. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I still so. It shouldn't be you versus you and them, the clock versus them, or them and you. It should be like you and them versus the clock. It's two players working as hard as they can to make sure that both people get a 5-turn game in.
Yeah, but our army list, and not to reawaken this debate or whatever, but you have to, I think, be considerate of all the constraints when you are making your army list, and the round time is one of them. And if you can't get through the game, then maybe that's not the army you should be taking to a time.
Oh yeah, legitimately, everyone should kind of get a bearing on how long it takes them to play XYZ army, and be reasonable. Like, I mean, if you are a slower player, it's something you do have to take into consideration. And there's anything wrong with that. Like, some of the best players I know are some of the slowest players I know.
Yeah, just play knights.
Yeah. No.
3 models.
You know what I mean? But there are things you can do to speed up your games. There's a lot of things you can do. I remember playing when mortar teams were crazy good for guardsmen, and I had like nine of them, 9 3-man mortar teams at one point, or even more. I think I had quite a few more at one point as well. And I had to figure out a strategy for how to do that quickly.
Yeah, you do. I just want to talk about this Rotting Tide stratagem. I don't know if we covered that.
Oh, Divergent. Nice.
So, the Rotting Tide is use this stratagem in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. Select Determinus as Assault Force Poxwalker unit from your army that is below half strength and remove it from the battlefield, or select Determinus as Assault Force Poxwalker unit from your army that has been destroyed. Set up that unit at its starting strength wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge other than the enemy's battlefield edge and more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. You can only use this stratagem once.
That's quite good.
Yeah, and then it's 2 CP if it's 10 or fewer models, and otherwise it's 3 CP.
Which you're just going to do, right? You got 20 Poxwalkers, you're like, do I want these back? Oh, I think I do.
Pretty sure I want them back.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Is this the first one we've seen where if you don't even have to have a single Poxwalker, it's one that's below half strength or destroyed?
Yeah. It's a full re-rack. It's a full, they come back at full strength, even if they're not on the table. Because most of them, you have to have a dude left. You have to have like one guy left in order to, like Green Tide, you have to have a guy left.
Yeah,
Tide of Traders is the same. And I think Black Cornucopians was the same in the old Drukhari book.
That sounds good.
The only ones that I think, actually, most of them are, like, it's interesting that they still have a re-rack one, like a respawn re-rack. That's what we used to call the Black Cornucopian one.
Yeah.
Re-rack. But yeah, that's not even going to be a thing anymore. How the meme culture has changed. But it's interesting that they're keeping elements like this, because I would have thought this kind of thing would have gone the way of the Dodo, like the whole getting a whole new unit back without reserve points, so without having to have points in reserve. I'm happy they did though, because I think it adds spice and credence to armies like the Poxwalker, Horde, the Shambling, whatever's. Yeah, because when we lost, so there's so far no codex has come out that has a universal fight again. They're always specific, like either witch cult specific or assault incest specific.
Yep. Yeah.
No, we have zero. Shoots twice. There's not a single shoots twice in the game as of right now of a new codex, and there's not a single. Is there a single double move? I don't think there is a full double move apart from the one that Ravenwing got. But then they're restricted to not charging, not shooting if they do.
Unleash the Horde is almost a double move.
Yeah, like Drukhari almost have 2 double moves. Like they have one where they just auto advance 6 instead of advancing, and they have one where they have fire and fade, of course, as well. But yeah, it's interesting that they're losing a lot of those full ones, because remember the whole reason Kraken Gene Stealers were good is because you moved them 20 odd inches and then 30 odd inches and then charged and stuff. But that doesn't seem to be
shell shock
a thing. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to bring up pain.
Yeah, it's difficult. But yeah, look, that you master the movement phase, you master the game. And so that only has to happen to you once for you to like radically change how you deploy.
Yeah. But it seems like they've decided that is a feel bad element of the game, and they've decided it should go the way of the Dodo. Or maybe they've just got it in mind for a specific army, and it shouldn't be something that can be done wholesale or prolifically.
Yeah, no, I think that's a cool way to do it. I mean, like the way you things aren't special if everyone can do them, and then you determine what you really wanted to accomplish with that. It's a mechanism. It's something you can do in the game. And I mentioned Unleash the Horde. Use this stratagem in your movement phase when a Terminus Est Assault Force Poxwalker unit from your army is selected to move, or in the fight phase when a Terminus Est Assault Force Poxwalker unit from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the turn, add 3 to the move characteristics of all Terminus Est Assault Force Poxwalker models in your army, and each time those models pile in, they can move an additional 3.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite nice.
So that's what it's almost like a double move, because their base movement is 4.
Yeah, actually, I like Poxwalkers. I like Poxwalkers a lot. There's a lot of shenanigan abilities with them as well. Like, do you know that they just do a fun bucket of mortal wounds? And you're but why? Why do these guys get to beat my face in? They're literal like garbage zombies.
If you get got by a unit of Poxwalkers, it's probably your fault.
Hot takes.
Nice.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. Wow.
You all are a bunch of scrubs. It's true.
Now, maybe not with these new rules. Maybe you're like, oh man. But I know I like, so Typhus is that used to be, I'd play the Typhus plague zombie horde, and I like it. I mean, Typhus is cool. I like everything Typhus is about, and I like the idea of these like slow moving horde type zombies. And then also, who doesn't like playing with Terminators? And one of the coolest things about this edition, talking about the state of Ninth, is that Terminators finally, like, after, I mean, they felt like Terminators in like first and second edition, and then for like a real long time they didn't feel like Terminators, and now they feel like tactical dreadnought armor.
Absolutely, they do. That was actually, I forgot about that as one of the topics I wanted to talk about when we were discussing Ninth, because while that wasn't one of the, GW didn't put the flag out that, hey, Terminators are going to be Terminators again in this edition. It was something that people had been absolutely clamoring for a very long time. Like the last time I remember non-Grey Knight Terminators being scary was 4th edition.
Yeah. Well, 4th, really? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I just don't remember them being. I mean, outside of Grey Knights and the wound passing and the paladins and that kind of stuff, that was actually one of the. They were crazy powerful, and they were also extremely travel friendly. So those are like check, and they have many Terminators. Check. They fired off in all cylinders for me. So of course I played that army.
Maybe they just beat my face in 4th edition. I was just a boy.
I'm trying to think of what was good, like Thunderhammer Storm Shield, like Ultramarines or something.
I actually remember it being Blood Angels.
Really?
But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Or maybe it just beat me in, because I was playing back then. I was like 12. I was literally like 12. I just remember what I was scared of back then.
That was back when Mephiston was the first one-man non-independent character. He's basically he was 5mm Demon Prince.
He was a bad man.
Yeah. All the characters were incredibly good.
Yeah.
But they carried the army. That was a little bit of a.
Tell us about these yellow helmets.
Okay, so we can jump to the hobby segment. So we haven't done this in a bit, but we have a segment called Finishing Moves. If you're new here, to where we talk about just 5-minute things that you can do to your army to make them get an effect you're looking for, make them look a little bit better, make it seem like you spent a lot more time than you actually did. And most times, you get to a point in your figure, you're like, this is done. Like, I'm going to put it down and walk away from it. But there's probably something you could spend 5 more minutes on and make it look a lot better. And yellow is something that I struggle with. And I know we've talked about the yellow in the past and different ways to do it. But, I just did 15 assault intercessors. That gives me 25 assault intercessors, or 26 assault intercessors, because I've got different configurations of like sergeants and that kind of stuff to make the squads different. Oddly enough, the only thing that I don't have is a guy with a power sword. And sure, what did I need this past weekend to make the points right? An assault intercessor with a power sword.
Such is tradition.
I will rectify this immediately. But, I've kind of, these have been taking longer than I would have liked. Not because of the difficulty. It's power armor. Come on, everybody. We all know how to paint power armor at this point. There's 100 tutorials out there. But it's just one of those. Again, I'm event driven. And so I've been looking at these guys for a long time. And they've been at kind of like various stages of completion. And I'm still not exactly done with them. Full confession, have not highlighted the black yet, but that is basically the last step. And so with the helmets, the yellow helmets, anything in the assault, now anything assault oriented on the Blood Angel side has a yellow helmet. Averland Sunset is basically a miracle yellow color. But it's kind of thick. You've got to really thin it out. I've posted some extreme close-ups of these helmets on my social media feed. I think I even put them up on the FTN Facebook page as well, like last weekend, while I was doing it, because I was kind of happy how they turned out. So Averland Sunset is kind of like a mustardy yellow. Yeah,
it's a very strong yellow, but it's not. It's got a really nice matte finish. It's kind of what the thing. I remember being thick and matte. And I like both those things in a base color.
That's it. So yeah, it makes a great base color. You can really do a lot going up from that. But that's where all the difficulty comes in, is like, okay, I put Averland Sunset on. Now what on earth do I do?
Yeah.
Because if you just I don't know, if you're at 47% humidity in your house and the leaves have just started to fall and a raven cries out in the east, then you're going to screw up your yellow. That's what it feels like. Whatever sorcery has to go in to get this yellow right. But what I've done is I get the Averland Sunset on, and I try to get it on as smooth as possible. That's actually what I'm trying to improve on as a painter, is making my paints as thin as they should be without breaking them. Like I don't want to make them too runny to where they don't do what I want them to do, or don't dry the right way, or give me that stain tea effect like we talk about with washes or whatever. I'm trying to make my colors as smooth as possible, and I've never been very good at that, but I think I'm getting better. Nice. So if you get this Averland Sunset on really smooth, then it's not the yellow that you want. It's not that striking yellow. You're not looking, it's kind of mustardy, which is not the Blood Angels yellow, and kind of boring, really, if I'm going to say it. But then I shade the recesses, just in the recesses, not on the all over wash, but I shade the recesses of the helmet with sepia. Mm-hmm. And that's got, it's not as deep and as rich as Agrax, but I think that's what you want. It has kind of a lighter, it's not fainter, it's not lighter, it's not fluffier. I don't know what I'm going for. Airier?
It's a more complementary color, I think. It's not like fighting against the yellow, right? Like Agrax is very strong. It's going to fight the yellow, whereas sepia, it's not soft per se, but it's just more complementary.
Thank you. I think that that's I think that's what I was trying. I hope that's what I was trying to say. But I feel like that's it. Yeah.
For me, I feel like Agrax is almost like a cool shade, whereas sepia is like a warmer shade brown wash. If that makes sense.
Yep. And believe me, anybody
else just picturing like a shade bottle wearing sunglasses? It's a cool shade.
It's cool.
I'm not trying to disrespect.
Never mind. I'm not funny.
Agrax. Like you could throw Agrax on anything and it's probably going to look better than it did before.
It's true. Can I maybe make a suggestion for you? Yeah. If you're finding that you're losing some pigmentation when you are, I'm just going to assume that you're just using water to thin the Averland Sunset?
I use water to thin everything. I don't use anything. Unless, and okay, I've actually experimented even with contrast in mediums. Mm-hmm. And so I use Lamia medium only for Scrag Brown for rust. And
I never use the medium.
Contrast medium. I found that it's very similar to the water. Like I've got to be like really trying to up my game to use the contrast medium.
I am curious. I've not used this, but I'm curious what would happen if you used a yellow ink to thin your paint.
Oh, I've tried that with red in the past, and I think you're right. That's a step that one could do. I mean, I probably just need to find like a good ratio, and then I know it does actually have something to do with the humidity a little bit, but barely. I was slightly joking about that, but
yeah. We'll so water tends to like make the paint dry faster, which makes it a little harder to work with, whereas the yellow ink is in a medium, but it's not like a contrast medium, right? It's a little bit different, and it might sort of help with that drying, because like when it looks textured, I find it's because it's drying on the brush a little bit as you're applying it.
Okay.
And I've been experimenting a lot with inks and having a lot of fun with them. So yeah, that might be something, like maybe throw a little Cassandora yellow in there.
Okay.
And see if maybe that helps with the smoothness.
I'll give it a shot. I will. I mean, I think I'm getting slightly better, but I may be at like the top of my crest and I need something to push over the edge, and maybe that's it. So thank you for that.
Like I've been using, they're also like amazing value for the money, but I've been using Liquitex acrylic inks a lot as like washes and to like thin paint and stuff like that. And I'm really, really enjoying them. And they don't, it takes a lot to break your paint, but it also like will add extra pigmentation in there. I'm just gushing right now just because I really like the inks. But
no, that's cool.
And you get a lot of product for, a fairly good amount of money. So I also like that.
You can't argue that, especially for something that you're going to use, you could potentially use it every time you open a pot of paint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you see my pink marine that I painted?
I did. So let me finish this with the we'll talk about how you get that pink.
Yeah.
So with this, get the Averland Sunset on, get the Sepia wash in there, only in the recesses again, not all over. And of course you can correct any splodginess that you did with the Averland Sunset. But again, it looks kind of boring at this point.
Mm.
Here's where the magic happens. A little bit of edge highlight with Ushtabdi bone. It immediately wakes it up. It looks like the yellow you want as soon as you put this bone color on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a color everybody should have, the Ushtabdi bone.
Yeah, I use it to highlight Orc Flesh. I use it to highlight Nurgle. I think I use Rakarth Flesh for my Nurgle Marines, but it's one shade off from the bone, this particular bone.
One's warm and one's cold, but they serve the same purpose, essentially.
For my Death Guard, I shade it with Reichland Flesh Shade. So it's the Death Guard green and then wash with the Reichland Flesh Shade and then wake it up with the Rakarth Flesh, I think. So
when you highlight the helmet, do you just do like the nose bridge and the eyes? Like where are you highlighting?
The ridge and then the earpieces. So, it's they basically got that Mr. T Mohawk area going on with the that comes around the sides and the ridge at the top. And I try to highlight the eyes and I try to highlight the nose, but I suffer from clunky highlight syndrome, and so I typically have to do little touch-ups after that. But that's where I go. Just on the raised parts. Like I don't get super fancy with it. Yeah,
I love it. I personally think with faces, like you can do so much with just a little bit of highlight. It just makes everything look so good with very, very little time invested into it. So I love this tip.
So this pink, like pastels are difficult for lots of people.
Yeah. Well, so the pastel it's a color I picked up. First off, I don't even really like pink. I don't know why I did this project. Probably for this reason, because I do find pink is really, really hard to work with. But the baby pink is just a color I picked up for some weird reason. And then this is the project I'm going to use it on. But that dark sort of magenta purpley pink, that is one color and a Liquitex ink. It's one paint pot and a Liquitex ink to achieve all of that depth in there.
Wow, nice.
They're super versatile. So you can use those inks as a wash, which I did. You can also use it to like thin paint and change the tone of a paint, which I did. Yeah,
Liquitex. Some serious art going over there.
You are an artiste.
Artiste. I don't know about that, but I do like to experiment with things I find in the art supply store. So.
Well, people can find, you got pictures up on your social media. Where can they see pics of this?
Oh, I post everything on my Instagram. That is the best place to see all my stuff.
But what is it?
Instagram.com/the.warmistress.
Yeah, it's worth checking out if you don't follow already. And I post, so I've got some close-ups of these helmets that I was talking about at Warmaster_TPM on Twitter. I think I put some on Instagram, on Fights with Dice on Instagram, but they're also up on the Forge the Narrative Facebook page.
I do nothing.
Well, look, I'm not the best at putting up pics all the time when we do the tutorials, but all these finishing move things come from stuff that I actually mess around with, like because I'm not a quote unquote talented painter. I just follow tutorials and use recipes and that kind of stuff. And
I don't think that I'm that talented of a painter either. I just paint a lot. I just paint a lot, and eventually you find stuff that sticks if you just keep painting.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Well, you got to be ultimately happy with your stuff too. So I mean, this is, but sometimes you want to achieve an effect, and you struggle with it. Like I know, like people see power or chainswords, with the hazard stripes on there, or power fist with the hazard stripes on there, and they would like to be able to achieve that effect, but they never have the confidence to do it. And so what I just talked about with painting yellow would absolutely work on either one of those applications.
Mm-hmm. I also think that sometimes it's good to look outside of the normal tools that you would have to achieve things like that. Like my husband is actually an amazing person for that kind of thing because he does checkers on his orcs, right? He doesn't pre-draw them. And he doesn't paint them. He uses a marker that he got at the art store to draw them on, and they look awesome.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. Like you just, don't be afraid to experiment and find your own way as well.
Well, that's another thing. So that you're exactly right, is that some of this stuff interacts with acrylic paint. If it's acrylic based, it probably will work with your other acrylic paints.
In his case, I think he used a Micron pen because then you can apply washes and stuff over it. I think it's Micron. It's one of those like art brands. Yep. You can actually apply washes and stuff over it and it doesn't run. So that's why you just kind of got to try stuff out. You never know.
I use Micron pens every now and then. The 005s, archival ink. And like I'm telling you, there's sometimes you just don't want to wait for that Nuln Oil to dry in the recesses on the white miniature, the white power armor you're trying to paint. You gotta get ready in the morning. So you gotta.
You're just sitting there like in the car before the tournament with
drawing
your
on figures.
pen.
That's it.
Love it.
Just drawing on figures.
You know what? Some people, just off on a little tangent, some people call that cheating. It's not cheating, right? It's another tool in your toolkit. And why wouldn't you want all the tools?
I as a talent, no talent in the paint wise, I call it a cheat, but artists call it techniques.
That's right.
Yes. Yep. It's funny that the better an artist you are, the less times you give any stuffs about the little corner cutting, and the more value you find in them. I'm sorry. At least that I've got a couple of friends who've won Golden Demons, and they try and teach me to be good, and they fail consistently. But they like tell me about all these corner cutting techniques that they use and little bits and pieces in here. And one of them told me about how he used to use a Derwent pencil, like a black pencil, to do eyes. He would just like get a really sharp tip on the pencil, and then just bang bang, eyes done, pupils finished, gone. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I'm going to do that. Where do I get one of those pencils?
I don't know. I have no idea, actually. I didn't ask past that because my eyes just glazed over. And I'm like,
he just gave you the keys to the kingdom and you were like, whatever. Not going to get
They're never going to work for me. Yeah, well, when you meet a guy whose artistic abilities are so beyond yours, you're just like, yeah, whatever. you can say anything, and I don't believe I'm capable of doing it.
Oh my god!
This one time, Adam, I tied my shoelaces. Like, yeah, you are so much better than me. Shoelaces. I dream of a day.
Get those Velcros. Like yeah, Velcros for life.
I actually think he used an eyeliner, a makeup pencil.
I mean, why not?
Look, if it works, it works.
It's cheerful.
This is the same guy who painted the better part of a Titan with a big makeup brush as his face brush. And he was like, rah! Yeah. So many cool things.
Wow, that's cool though. That's cool. No, this has been a good segment. I know we've covered yellow in the past, but I want to get the hobby segment flowing again. I know I've been saying that we got some more hobby stuff coming. As far as like Pop Your Tabletop goes, finally getting some free time freed up to get that going for real. But other than that, that's our show this week.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything they want to talk about before we wrap up and get out of here?
It was a really fun one for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I just finished watching The Last Church, the film on YouTube. It's a fan made film for the I think who wrote it? A Graham McNeil novel called The Last Church, which is essentially the story of the last church on Terra during the Unification Wars of the Emperor. And someone's made a complete film for it, in which it kind of animatedly details the story. It's phenomenally well done. It's a fantastic thing. It goes for an hour and 11 minutes. It's a great story. It's a great novel. If you have the novel, pick it up, give it a read as well. And yeah, go and check it out. It's just The Last Church, the complete film on YouTube. It was a fantastic.
Oh, neat. Cool. Well, everybody have a great rest of y'all's week, and we will see y'all next week again. Tune in, like, share, all the stuff. Do what you're supposed to do, please. 5-star reviews. And we'll see y'all then.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Handle the truth.